The intense sunlight beats down on me. The sweat that had been gushing out earlier stopped and palpitations and nausea set in. It's unpleasant. Maybe I got heat stroke because I've been working outside for a long time. Perhaps it wasn't such a great idea to tackle balcony cleaning in the sweltering heat, even with my husband's support. It seems like it'll be over soon, but I can't even stand up anymore due to the nausea. I call out my husband's name from the balcony. At that moment, my consciousness faded and I collapsed. Simultaneously, my husband, who appeared, looks down at me and says,
"If you're feeling that unwell, I'll take you to the hospital."
Huh? Really?
Yeah, I'll even bring the car out, so hop in quickly.
Feeling as if I were about to throw up, I managed to get into my car. However, on the way home to the hospital, my husband suddenly dragged me out of the car.
"I have an urgent matter. Go to the hospital by yourself."
Huh? As my husband's car kept getting farther away, I found myself in a difficult situation, able to do nothing but pray. I don't want to be left here. Anyway, I need to hurry to the hospital. Right after that, my husband and I would face an unexpected turn of events. My name is Kelsey Miller. I'm 29 years old. I am an ordinary office worker working for a generic corporation. We only got married 2 years ago after my husband's pursuit. Our relationship evolved through work because my company had business dealings with his. We can understand and relate to each other well because our job responsibilities are similar. Because my company is larger in scale, overtime tends to be more frequent on my end. However, he understands the situation, especially during emergencies. Due to overtime, there are often times when I can't prepare dinner, and household chores end up being postponed to the next day. Yet William doesn't express dissatisfaction or blame me for these situations. However, that doesn't mean he takes over household chores when I work overtime. It seems he's not inclined to do the chores himself, even though he doesn't blame me. During the first year of marriage, I didn't mind much, but as we passed the second year, I gradually began to feel dissatisfaction with my husband. When I came back home the other day after overtime, I found my husband lying around in the sofa watching TV. In the sink, the remains of cup noodles and side dishes he had eaten were left as they were.
"Welcome back. Thanks for your hard work with overtime today."
It's nice to hear words of appreciation, but that's not what I want. Exhausted both physically and mentally from consecutive overtime, I inadvertently expressed what was on my mind. "Hey, William, can't you clean up after yourself for the portions you ate?"
"Huh? What's gotten into you? You've never said anything like that before."
"I don't want to do housework when I come home tired after work. It's fine when I come back on time, but doing chores after overtime is a bit tough for me."
"I'm not asking you to do it, am I? Do it the next day on your day off."
Either way, I don't like the assumption that I have to do everything. Why should I be the only one burdened with household chores in our marriage? I can't help but get emotional, and tears well up. I thought he would understand by now. That's what I believed. But he sighed loudly and unleashed the unimaginable.
"You say you're the only one, but it's normal for women to do household chores, right?"
Huh? What are you saying?
"My mom was the same way, you know. She always took care of the house."
That's because your mother was a housewife, right? I'm a full-time employee just like you, William.
"That doesn't matter. It's common sense for women to do household chores. Didn't you know that when you got married?"
I didn't know that. I just loved being with you, William. That's why I wanted to live together. I tearfully pled with my husband, but he doesn't change his expression at all. Moreover, he wears an openly annoyed expression.
"If you love me, shouldn't you be willing to put effort into household chores for my sake? I also want to continue working even after marriage. and I let you work without saying anything.
What do you mean? Do you dislike me or something?
A wife prioritizing work over returning home early is abnormal, you know. A normal guy would have divorced you by now. Don't you understand that I've been able to maintain our relationship because I'm kind?
I'm not prioritizing work over you. I thought that both of us working would allow us to save money for the future.
After all, money is more important than me, right? Well, it's fine, but I'm feeling really put off.
It's not like that. From that day on, my husband's attitude changed completely. When I come home from work, there's no longer the welcoming greeting that used to be there. He doesn't help with household chores or assist on weekends. For some reason, my husband's return home time gradually became later. My husband is closer to his office than I am to our apartment, so until now, he has been home before I am. Lately, my husband has been coming home noticeably later. Moreover, he started returning past midnight without any concern. As a result, I naturally end up spending more time at home. In the past, on days off, we used to enjoy drinking together, but now, those moments of couple time have significantly dwindled. He's late again today. I wait for my husband to talk to him, but even after midnight, he doesn't return. I waited until around 1 a.m., but since there was no sign of him coming back, I went to sleep first. The next morning, when I woke up, my husband was on the sofa in his suit. I tidy up the beer can that he probably left half empty, despite feeling disgusted by his sloppy appearance. At that moment, I noticed his smartphone under the sofa was blinking. This blinking is probably indicating a new message. Usually I wouldn't pay much attention, but for some reason it bothered me this day. Apprehensively, I picked up my husband's smartphone and secretly placed his finger on the fingerprint sensor to unlock it. When I checked the contents, his usual messaging app was displayed. Maybe there is something not good in here. With determination, I opened the messaging app. However, there were no traces of suspicious exchanges. Thank goodness. I was overthinking it. Then I realized that the notification I just received was apparently not from the Messages app, but from the Mail folder. When I tapped the email folder slowly, emails were categorized into work, private, and more. In one of the categorized folders, there was one with a heart emoji. Apprehensively, I opened it, and there were traces of an unbelievable exchange. Are you kidding me? Is he cheating? In the folder with the heart emoji, there were signs that my husband was exchanging messages with someone who appeared to be his affair partner. The contents included phrases like, "I love you" and "I want to be together soon." The moment I saw those, everything went dark in front of my eyes. Could it be that William is cheating? Since when? Why would he cheat when we're married? His attitude changed since that conversation we had, but could it be from that time? As I traced back the exchanges, it seemed their relationship had started quite a while ago. Initially, they seemed to go out for meals together, but after he became distant with me, there were records of my husband actively inviting her, staying at her place until late at night. I transferred those exchanges to my own smartphone and headed to the detective agency on the same day. There, I decided to request an investigation into my husband's affair. After that, I tried to maintain as normal a life as possible so my husband wouldn't suspect anything. Even William probably doesn't think I know about his affair. Although I didn't pay much attention before, he spends significantly more time looking at his smartphone compared to before. Presumably, he's in contact with his affair partner. 2 weeks later, I received a message from the detective agency saying,
"We've gathered enough evidence."
The photos presented by the investigator conclusively proved my husband's affair. Surprisingly, there was no shock, just overwhelming anger. I took the evidence home and decided to discuss the matter with both sets of parents involved. On the weekend, a few days later, I asked them to come over without my husband knowing. As I cleaned the room to welcome them, finally in the early afternoon, my husband returned home.
By the way, you haven't been taking care of the balcony lately, have you?
Oh, yeah. I've been busy recently and I might have neglected the cleaning.
Make sure to get it done. If the moms come and it's not in proper shape, I'll be embarrassed too.
If that's the case, couldn't you help a bit?
I always say it, don't I? Household chores are a woman's job.
Having uttered those words, my husband left the living room and returned to his own room. Soon, this relationship will come to an end. He still doesn't know that. I reluctantly went out to the balcony and started cleaning. Unexpectedly, intense sunlight made my sweat stream down incessantly. I wanted to take more frequent breaks, but I couldn't stop because my husband checked on me periodically. To make matters worse, he told me,
"Don't come inside until you're finished,"
and closed the balcony door. I had no choice but to continue working for about an hour. Meanwhile, my health was approaching its limits. The strong sunlight mercilessly beat down on me. The sweat that had been pouring a moment ago stopped, and dizziness and nausea welled up. It feels awful. Could it be heat stroke because I've been working outside for so long? It seems like I'm almost done, but the discomfort is so overwhelming that I can't even stand anymore. I called out my husband's name from the balcony. At that moment, my consciousness faded and I collapsed. Simultaneously, my husband appeared, looking down at me and said,
"What's wrong? You haven't finished yet."
"No, it's not that. I feel nauseous. It might be heat stroke."
Heat stroke? If you're feeling that unwell, I'll take you to the hospital, really.
Eh? Really?
Yeah, I'll get the car out, so hurry up and get in.
I didn't expect my husband to say that, and I felt a little relieved. While feeling on the verge of vomiting, I somehow got into the car. After driving for about 5 minutes, the speed suddenly began to drop. Then my husband stopped the car, got out of the driver's seat, and abruptly pulled me out of the car. "Wait, William, what are you doing?"
Urgent matters came up. Go to the hospital by yourself.
Huh?
Honestly, I don't care what happens to you. I'm going.
Wait, please, William. As if to drown out my voice, my husband's car kept getting farther away. I had forgotten about my physical discomfort, consumed by anger toward my husband. Leaving me stranded like this is unacceptable. After cheating on me, he treats me like this when I'm unwell. I will never forgive him. I will definitely get revenge. Slowly standing up, I began to walk, suppressing the nausea. It took me about an hour to reach the hospital on my own. However, my strengths must have reached its limit. While completing the reception process, I collapsed. I was immediately admitted, and a few hours later, my father and mother rushed to the hospital. Geez, I was really surprised. Suddenly hospitalized with heat stroke. Comforting my almost teary mother, I apologized. "I'm sorry for causing you worry." I went on and told them everything. "Actually, William is cheating on me. I wanted you to come to the house to talk about this." "What? Cheating? William is?" "I had the detective agency investigate, and the evidence is in that bag." "Is this a joke? I found it strange that William didn't come to the hospital." On the way to the hospital, he forcibly dragged me out of the car, so I walked to the hospital on my own. "No way." My mother had a pained expression on the verge of tears. On the other hand, my father's face turned red with anger.
"Kelsey, can I borrow these photos for a moment?"
"Huh? Yeah, sure."
Thanks. I won't let that guy do as he pleases.
Dad? While I didn't quite understand the meaning of his words, it was easy to imagine that my father was quite angry. He told me to rest and left the hospital with my mother. I informed my husband that I had been hospitalized and decided to focus on treatment for the time being. After receiving various treatments, I finally recovered a few days later. My mother came to pick me up and she drove me home. I'm back. When I opened the front door, there were a large number of shoes scattered about. Clearly, not my husband's. Hastily heading to the living room, I found my father and in-laws there. Next to them, my husband beaten up and a pale-faced woman were slumped over. What's going on? When I asked, my father spoke coldly.
After visiting you, Kelsey, I went to see William's parents, to show them evidence of the affair.
Is that so?
Yeah. Then William's parents came to this apartment with us, and wouldn't you know it, William and this woman were inside. You informed him about your hospitalization, didn't you?
Could it be that he knew I was hospitalized and brought his mistress into our home?
That's exactly what happened. Thanks to that, we were able to witness the affair scene with our own eyes.
It seems that the beating my husband received left him in a terrible state. Even my mother and mother-in-law, who are usually so kind to me, stared at him with a devilish look on their faces. My husband, perhaps no longer able to bear their attitude, complained to me with tears in his eyes.
I didn't mean it, Kelsey. It wasn't like I was serious about that relationship. This was just a fling.
A fling? After all those messages about wanting to be together quickly?
It was just a spur-of-the-moment thing. What I truly love is stability.
The affair partner, reacting to my husband's words, started making a fuss. Amidst their quarrel echoing through the room, I slammed my hand on the table, silencing them. You've got to be kidding me. Do you really love me? Then why did you leave me there in such a bad shape? There was even a chance I could have died. Despite that, you prioritized your affair over me. And that's not all.
Wait, it's not what you think. At that time, she told me to come quickly.
Wasn't it just an excuse to visit her place? You intended to drop me off from the beginning. You expect me to believe the words of a scumbag like you now? Save your lies for someone who cares. I don't want scum like you interfering with my life anymore. Stay away from me at all costs.
Oh no, wait a minute, Kelsey. Don't divorce me.
After my husband said that, I took out the divorce papers from my bag. I had received them from the city office on the way back from the hospital. I slammed the divorce papers in front of my husband and then went back to my parents' house. With the corporation of my in-laws later on, a completed divorce form was sent. I signed it and submitted it to the city office. We were officially able to dissolve our marital relationship. After that, I consulted a lawyer and demanded compensation from both William and his affair partner. The affair partner, who was living paycheck to paycheck with a part-time job, struggled to make ends meet with the repayments. Eventually, she had to rely on her parents, and it led to the inevitable breakup with William. On the other hand, news of William's affair and divorce quickly spread in the company. Although he didn't get fired, unable to endure the cold attitude from those around him, he eventually resigned on his own. His own parents disowned him, and he is now working part-time jobs. Unable to live in the apartment where we used to reside, he moved to a one-room apartment in a less affluent neighborhood. He seems to be looking for a new job, but finding one has been challenging, and he continues to lead a precarious lifestyle. A month has passed since then, and I left my parents' house to rent an apartment near my workplace. Now I find fulfillment in my daily life focusing on my job. Happiness isn't solely about being with someone you love. I have learned this firsthand. From now on, I want to live a wonderful life, prioritizing my own feelings.
Live with your mom because she's poor? No way. I'll go only after she's dead.
As soon as I brought up the idea of living with my mom, my husband blurted out those words. I was so taken aback by his rejection that I couldn't say anything more. But 6 months later, I would throw those words right back at him. He would regret his refusal, his face pale with shock. My name is Eva. I'm 45 years old. I met my husband, Nathan, who's 2 years older than me, while working as a kitchen staff member at a hotel. At that time, he was front desk staff, but now he's a concierge. He was quite handsome, fluent in languages, and really cool. After we got married, our daughter Heather was born, and I quit my job. Once Heather started elementary school, I began working part-time in the deli section of a local supermarket. We always dreamed of owning a home, but remained stuck in a rental apartment as time passed. We could have afforded a house if we had really tried, but we were comfortable where we were and ended up staying there for many years. Nathan wasn't keen on buying a house either. Maybe it was because we both had the idea of eventually moving in with our parents. Both of us being only children, we vaguely thought we'd end up living in one of our parents' homes. But we didn't get along great with our in-laws, so we never really discussed it in detail. My parents' house is about a 30-minute drive away, in a quiet, natural area. My father, who ran a confectionery shop, passed away 3 years ago, and we closed the shop then. My mother, in her 20s, lives alone and gets by on her pension. I used to visit her regularly, with Heather, but since she became a busy high school student with clubs and part-time jobs, we haven't been able to go together recently. I also increased my part-time hours to save for her education, so I haven't been able to visit my mom for a few months. Still, my mom is a bright and active woman involved in hobbies and volunteer work. She's been healthy and hasn't really been sick, so I guess I wasn't too worried. But lately, I've been concerned because she hasn't contacted me. She used to send photos of her hiking trips and flower arrangement classes, which reassured me she was doing well, but that stopped. My emails went unanswered, and phone calls wouldn't go through. Something was wrong. After finishing my part-time job, I drove to her house. Her house, where I was born, is old, built by my father. Although the shop had been renovated a few times, the living space was mostly untouched, repaired only when absolutely necessary. As I parked in the driveway at dusk, I noticed it was dark inside. No lights on. Was my mom not home? She usually went out, but was almost always back by the afternoon. I pressed the doorbell, but there was no response. No sound of the chime inside. Maybe it was broken? Mom, I'm opening the door. I took out my key and opened the door. Entering the house, I was startled. Yikes! In the dim light, I saw a shadowy figure and involuntarily cried out. Startled by my voice, the figure turned around. Eva? Mom? As I approached the table where my mom was, I saw her holding a small sandwich in the dark. Mom, what's going on? Oh, sorry. I was just having my dinner. There was nothing else on the table. Just that one small sandwich. I mean, why are you sitting in the dark? I thought nobody was home. Oh, yes, right. She seemed unlike her usual vibrant self. Almost lifeless. I tried to contact you, but couldn't reach you by mail or phone.
The electricity was cut off, so I couldn't charge anything. Sorry.
Electricity cut off? Are you that short on money?
Well, we were self-employed and the pension isn't much.
To the point where you can't pay for electricity? We were never wealthy, but I didn't think we were that bad off. My parents paid for my vocational school and helped when I got married. They even spent generously on Heather. I felt ashamed for not knowing my mom's situation and for neglecting her. I took the bill from her and paid the electricity bill. I also bought food for the two of us. It would take a while for the power to come back, so I decided we'd have a dinner together. I called home, and Heather answered. I'm at Grandma's. There's a bit of a problem, so I'll be late coming back. Okay, I'll make something for dinner. Thanks. That would be a great help. She had grown into a good kid, despite a rebellious phase in middle school. Is your dad back yet? No, not yet. He's been coming home late, a lot lately. Leaving the house matters to Heather, I sat down to dinner with my mom, lit by an emergency lantern. In the lantern light, she looked thin and pale, much older than before, although it might have just been the dim light. Mom, are you feeling okay?
I've been a bit off lately. Maybe it's my age.
She smiled weakly, but seemed to enjoy the meal. Sorry, it's just supermarket food.
No, it's been a while since I've had a full meal.
What? Why are you so short on money?
Had some expenses.
Expenses? Big expenses can come up just from living, especially in an old house like ours. Things break and need repair, and I assumed that was where her money was going. Mom, if you're struggling with money, why don't we live together? I just said it naturally. Living apart, I can't keep an eye on her, but if we live together, we can share meals, and I can help with any repairs that are needed. But she said,
It's okay. My fixed deposit will mature soon. I'll manage somehow. Besides, what would Nathan say?
Indeed, I couldn't imagine my husband agreeing to it. He would definitely balk at spending even a penny on the repairs of an old house. Simply put, he's stingy. Extremely so. He also didn't get along with my father. Dad had a craftsman spirit and high pride, so they often clashed. That's why he hardly ever visited my parents' home. He'd probably hate the idea of living with my mom now. Still, I couldn't leave her alone in this state, so I decided to bring it up with him. But...
Live with your mom? Because she's poor? No way. I'll go only after she's dead.
I expected him to oppose living together. But to say something like that? If this goes on, she really might die.
Well, I'll consider going then.
What? I never thought he could be so cold. And when I told him I paid my mom's electricity bill, he got furious.
You paid her electricity bill? Why should we have to pay for that?
He's extremely particular about money, probably influenced by the way he was raised. His parents would spend on themselves, but never for others. They seemed to be living beyond their means, just for show. Nathan had the same tendencies. If I had realized this earlier, I might have reconsidered marrying him. I didn't see it before we married. I remember He was always well dressed, but he never treated me to a meal during our dates. And the gifts he gave for birthdays or Christmas were something a kid could afford with their allowance. It's not that these things are bad, but it always left me feeling uneasy. So it's typical of him to get angry about paying for my mother's electricity bill. But how can I just leave my struggling mom alone?
Why do we have to take care of her?
What? Are you telling me I can't help my own mother? I owe her for raising me, and we should do some filial duties, right?
She didn't raise me.
Are you being serious? My parents helped us when we got married and when Heather was born. Have you forgotten their kindness? Your parents never helped us.
I never asked for their help. If they couldn't afford it, they shouldn't have done it. It's their own fault if they can't manage their finances.
You actually think that way about my parents?
Anyway, it's got nothing to do with me.
There's no use arguing with someone like him. Even though I knew it was futile, my frustration didn't go away. As always, my daughter was the one who could lift my spirits. She had been difficult during her teenage years, but now she's a great person to talk to. Mom, I feel bad for Grandma. She must have overheard my conversation with Nathan. When he left the living room, she came in and said, "Use my part-time money. Let's help her." I hugged her without thinking. "Thanks, sweetie, but it's okay. I have some savings, so we'll manage." "You have savings?" "Otherwise, your dad would spend it all." "He is generous with himself, isn't he?" Laughing together with her made me feel a bit better. Plus, Grandma said her deposit is maturing soon. It's probably not much, but at the time I thought that way. Little did I know how well she had managed her finances.
Eva, help me.
It was 6 months later that Nathan came to me pleading. I had been visiting my mom regularly and helping her financially, and she was starting to recover. There was a reason why she had started to struggle with money, and it involved my husband. What's up?
My parents are about to go bankrupt.
I thought they were in deep debt. Their house and car never seemed to fit their means.
I have to do something.
Then, do something.
How can I?
Why not?
Where would I get that kind of money?
You have personal savings, right? You barely give me any of your salary for living expenses, so I've been managing with my part-time income. You're saving the rest, aren't you?
Well, it's just... Please, help me.
You want our family to shoulder your parents' debts? Remember how angry you got when I paid my mom's electricity bill?
I was wrong about that. Please, I'm begging you. Let's live with my parents.
What? I'll just return your words to you.
Huh?
I'm just giving you back the words you said to me.
What? Did I say something?
What? You don't remember? I haven't forgotten a single word.
So, what did I...
Live with your mom because she's poor? No way. I'll go only after she's dead.
What?
That's what you said.
Well,
Do you remember now?
No,
You said it was her fault that she couldn't manage her finances. Why don't you go live with your parents alone?
And what will you do?
I'm going to live with Heather at my mom's place.
What?
I'm saying I'll live with my mom.
Are we going to live separately?
Of course. You didn't help when my mom was in trouble. I have no intention of helping your parents. Besides, I plan to dissolve our marriage.
What?
I presented him with the divorce papers I had prepared.
Why?
Why don't you ask yourself?
Ugh.
Just then, Heather came in. Dad, this came for you. He turned pale as he saw the envelope in her hand and tried to snatch it back. She deftly dodged his attempt, and he stumbled and fell.
Ouch. Did you read this?
I took the envelope from her and pulled out the documents inside. Sorry, but I opened it. This is a notice from the credit company about your loan, right? What did you need to borrow money for so badly?
It was necessary.
Necessary for what? Let me guess. You gambled it all away, didn't you?
How did you...
Heather saw you entering a casino several times on her way back from her part-time job.
What?
Not just that. Your computer history is full of online casinos and horse racing sites.
Don't use my computer without permission.
I needed it for research. You won't buy me one.
You work, don't you?
I don't make enough to buy a computer. I'm even buying what I need for school myself. We're living mostly on Mom's part-time income because you don't contribute. I couldn't ask Mom to buy me a computer. And to think you have been gambling away your money.
Heather.
Defeated by his daughter's words, his shoulders slumped. We both worked jobs without regular weekends, so we rarely had the same days off. He must have thought his gambling went unnoticed, but our daughter was one step ahead. She hadn't just stumbled upon his casino visits or computer history. She had been suspicious and investigated. His gambling addiction wasn't a recent development. When I checked his bank account, I saw his salary would be withdrawn almost immediately after deposit, leaving no balance. No wonder you weren't enthusiastic about buying a home. You can't get a loan with your own debts, let alone pay off your parents. But I don't want your parents borrowing money from my mother because you're broke.
What?
Your parents borrowed money from my mom. That's why she was struggling. They kept borrowing, saying your mom was sick and needed treatment. They told her not to tell us because it would worry us. My mom felt sorry for them and lent them money, planning to keep it secret. But when I said I was divorcing you and moving back home, she told me.
What?
Don't worry. The illness was a lie. They've borrowed so much they can't borrow from friends or relatives anymore and ended up going to my mom. When she went to ask for repayment, she was surprised to see your mom perfectly healthy. While they were pushing my mom into hardship, they continued living comfortably. It's unbelievable. I couldn't be part of such a family anymore, so I filed for divorce. I moved back to my mom's house with Heather. Nathan eventually moved out of our apartment and went back to his parents, taking up extra jobs alongside his main work to pay off his debts. After living beyond their means for so long, they must be struggling with a simpler lifestyle. As for my mother's fixed deposit, it matured. I was surprised at how much she had saved. Mom, you managed the money so well.
I knew the pension wouldn't be enough and I didn't want to be a burden. I saved desperately. I thought Dad would be able to work longer, so that was a miscalculation.
No, you did great.
Thank you. We should be okay for a while. This money is yours to use freely.
She handed me the passbook. I can't take advantage of my mom, but may I borrow some? I had made a decision. When I moved back home, I quit my job. But life goes on, and there are expenses, especially with Heather's education. I decided to renovate my dad's confectionery shop. I have a cooking license, and I used my experience from working in the supermarket deli to open a delicatessen. Initially, only a few locals and regulars of my dad's shop came, but gradually more customers came. The business did well, and it got busier. My mom and daughter helped sometimes. My mom fit right in as if it had always been her shop, which in a way it was. She enjoyed working, reminiscent of the past. I never thought I would take over my dad's shop. I can't make sweets like him, but I plan to offer deli items and sweets. It's nice to have a delicatessen like that, isn't it?